Governor, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. David Wasinger, I'm representing the Lieutenant Governor's office. As you know, because I've seen each of you in the Senate, I took office last month, and we've got a new team at the Capitol. We've appreciated the support from the senators in terms of getting me up to speed. We've got a lot of support from the Senate staff and the Office Administration. Today I'd like to welcome, I've got in attendance with me Katie Ashcroft, our Chief of Staff, Michael Donovan, who's with the Missouri Arts Council, and also Ashley Beard-Posnow, who's the Executive Director of the Missouri Humanities Council. So if you have any questions that I'm unable to answer, perhaps they could do it. You know, our budget covers several components to support our work through the Capitol Office and the Missouri Arts Council, which was transferred to our office in 2019. In our core budget, we have two new decision items related to the state pay plan. The first was referenced by the Governor Kehoe in the state of the state and provides for a 1% salary increase for every 2 years for continuous state service. The second new decision item is also related to the pay plan. It ensures all funds have resources to cover the proposed salary increase. So our Governor's recommendation for our core budget has remained the same as it was in 2025. And frankly, Governor Kehoe prepared this. So we've reviewed it in our office, and you know, frankly, we had very little input, but we didn't see anything out of line in terms of what Governor Kehoe had prepared. So the core budget will just support our Capitol Office staff and the work done to advocate for Missouri seniors and veterans. And obviously, I'd like to highlight the Buy Missouri program, which is administered by our office. Buy Missouri is designed to promote Missouri manufacturers of goods in Missouri. We have more than 600 Missouri businesses now that are members of the program. And I wanted to let you know we will be hosting the Buy Missouri Day on April 23rd in the Capitol Rotunda. And if any of you would like to stop by and learn more about the program, I welcome you to do so. So that's really our core budget. We have some add-on items that the chairman is probably more familiar with, frankly, than I am, because he I think, was involved in this last year together with Governor Kehoe. And but I'm open to any questions on our core budget or anything else in the budget book.
All right, any questions from the committee? Adam, you good? Doesn't appear so.
All right, thank you, Senator.
All right, appreciate it. Next up, Mr. Secretary of State.
Ready? All right. Good morning, Chairman Huff, Vice Chairman Black, Ranking Minority Member May, and members of this Senate Appropriations Committee. For the record, I am Secretary of State Denny Hoskins, and it's an honor to be here this morning to present the budget of the Secretary of State. As a former member of this body, I appreciate the important work that you all do to account for every taxpayer dollar. As you are aware, the current year budget and this budget proposal for next fiscal year were prepared by Secretary Ashcroft and the prior SOS administration. I'm glad to report that we are within budget for the current fiscal year, but I'm asking for a little grace as I work to mold this budget into my own. The 9 major divisions within the Secretary of State office are administrative rules, business services, elections, fiscal and facilities, human resources, information technology, record services and archives, securities, and the state library. When I first took office, they said they needed to debrief me on 2 different things. One, we get sued a lot in the Secretary of State office, but I'm proud to report since I've taken office a little over 40 days, we've not had any new lawsuits, knock on wood. And we get, when I first came into office, we had 8 open positions for attorneys, and we had half of one attorney. So we are working on staffing up on that. And then the second thing is hackers try to hack into our website and to the Secretary of State's office every day. We get cybersecurity attacks every day. They're trying to get into that information, whether it be the voter rolls or the business services information. I will tell you up front that I may not have all the answers to your questions today. However, I do have my staff here, and any question that we cannot answer at this hearing, I will try and get you that information as soon as possible. If there's no further questions, I'm happy to jump in and present our budget recommendations.
No questions appearing.
All right.
Go ahead.
We start off on page 3. We requested $70 million versus the governor recommendation of $68 million, with the main difference due to the $1.2 million NDI for library services, which I will discuss on page 19. We have 204 FTEs. Our longest vacant FTE is one from 2022, which is an attorney position. I will also say that it's been very interesting interviewing and hiring people. It's very tough as far as sometimes the pay that we're able to pay in the public sector, especially with attorneys and IT folks. And then when you have a prior administration that they know is getting ready to leave, it's very tough. I think it was very tough for the prior administration to fill some of those positions because they knew that there was going to be a new Secretary of State come in. On page 4, this is our operating core. This is comprised of over $12.9 million for all personnel services, and approximately $5.8 million is for E&E. Page 10. This is the NDI for the governor's pay plan request. Or actually, it's page 11. And then page 10, if we backtrack on that, that was flexibility. As from previous years where we are requesting 100% flexibility with our operating core, we did not use any flexibility in fiscal year 2024 and have no plans to use it in 2025. Page 19 and 22. This is the State Library Services NDI and Transfer NDI. The State Library is one of the 5 cultural partners. State Statute 143.183 requires the transfer of 10% of the estimated revenues generated from the athlete entertainers tax to the library networking fund. This NDI is an increase to the library services fund based on that estimated revenue. So we always, I think it's, since it is in state statute that we ask for 10%, I think we owe it to taxpayers to ask for that 10%. So obviously it's up to the legislature what you all give to us. Page 25. This is the job class detail report. Like I mentioned before, we can have up to 267 FTEs, and currently we're about at 204 employees. Good morning.
I'm just curious, because I know when you're on this side of this
Yes.
place, empty FTEs were pretty important to you, and I always kind of agreed with you that these
Yes.
departments have many empty slots. Are you planning on reducing some of these?
Yes, we're looking at that right now. It seems like just over the years, whether it's been Democrat or Republican Secretary of States, instead of getting rid of FTEs, they've just kind of added on. We had, with different positions, we hired I didn't hire a deputy chief of staff this year like they'd had in the past, but I did hire a director of election integrity, and so some of those we need to delete those. And we're in the process of looking and reviewing of those. Obviously, like I said, this budget was presented by
Right.
Secretary Ashcroft, but yes, we are looking at all FTEs and trying to align those with the priorities of my administration.
So 60-some may go down then as far as the vacancies?
Yeah, I don't know about 60 because we do still have some openings. Currently, we have 8 spots for attorneys. Currently, we have 2 attorneys with 1 coming on board. We're still trying to hire a director of securities enforcement, our securities division, which is basically the prosecutor for our securities division. We've not had one for quite some time. They had one, and then that person left, and we've been unable to fill that. So we're actively trying to find that because, that, like I said, we have a great securities division. As you know, we hired former State Rep O'Donnell to be our new securities commissioner. He has a background in bonds and was a bond trader, so we're very excited about that. We hired a new general counsel that will start here within the next month to advise them on securities-related issues. We're still trying to hire a security enforcement person, and like I said, that we've got great investigators in our securities division. They put forth, I describe them kind of as the police force and the detectives. They put together all the information. We just got to have a prosecutor in that office in order to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, just as this goes forward, I'd like to keep up with these numbers, what we do. Okay, thank you.
All right. Page 28. Grants, donations, and projects. This appropriation provides a means of receiving and expending funds office-wide that become available from grants, contracts, or gifts. Page 34, refunds. This is used when a customer overpays for filings when paid by cash or check. The majority of this appropriation is used for business service overpayments. Page 39. This is the investor restitution. Our office investigates investment fraud, and this is where we talk about our securities division. This appropriation is used as a pass-through for restitution payments to aggrieved investors. Once money is received from the defendant, it is then forwarded to the investors. Page 44, Family Trust Company. This has been moved according to Senate Bill 1359 in 2024. This oversight was moved to the Division of Finance, so that's no longer under the Secretary of State. Page 49, this is elections cost transfer from general revenue to the Election Administration Improvement Fund for election costs, MCVR maintenance, grants to election authorities, and transaction costs. You will find that amount varies based on election years. Obviously, we have more expense there to reimburse our county clerks and things during election years.
Mr. Secretary?
Yes.
Will election cost transfer, I think it's a good time for me to ask. I know that you added the gentleman, I met him a time or two, that was in Pettis County dealing with
Yes.
Elections. At this point in time, do you see anything coming out of your office that's going to be major expenses to counties or major expenses, Secretary of State, if any changes come in the way we manage elections in our state? Is that going to be a...
No, we don't foresee any major changes in expenses right now. We've done a lot with election integrity and headed by our election director as well as our director of election integrity. In fact, I think we've eliminated 140,000 people off of the voter rolls. And so I know our director of election integrity went up to Jackson County and worked with LEA election director there.
You remember from being in here with me in the Senate.
Yes.
19 counties, small counties, concerns about machines, everybody having to do a wholesale change of machines and stuff. You guys are still going to go through the verification process and things like that.
Yes. Yes.
If there's some kind of major change coming up that your office decides, I hope the state is a pretty strong partner in trying to make those changes in machines to throwing that out on counties.
Yes, I'll make that very clear, and I've made that very clear. And only the legislature or the county clerks can change to go to hand counting of ballots. Now, hand counting of ballots is within current Missouri state statute. Part of the Secretary of State's office, what we do is we do certify the machines or recertify the machines. In fact, last week we had, and usually it's for a software update, we had there's 4 election machine companies that are authorized, certified here in the state. Last week we had ES&S come in. One of the new things, and according to state statute, it defines what we have to look for as far as when we do that recertification. I've proposed a new rule that's going through the regular rulemaking process to require a public demonstration for those election machines. And so we actually had our first one last Tuesday. The legislature, elected officials, media, and the public were invited to come in and ask questions, kind of kick the tires of these election machines, fill out sample ballots, and ask any questions that they had. So going forward, we're proposing a rule where that would be one of the requirements.
Excuse me just a second. What you just discussed is similar to what we do in what I think happens in all counties.
Yes.
Now, before the election, when the machines, people come in from both parties and
That's right.
run through the ballot that's going to be presented. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
Mr. Chair. Hi.
Hi, Senator.
Mr. Secretary, and congratulations. I just have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Are we up to date with reimbursing all of our counties, the counties for the elections?
Yes, we are up to date. Not all counties have submitted their reimbursement request, and so sometimes we send them a gentle reminder that, hey, you haven't sent in your reimbursement, but yes, we are current.
Okay, and are there any new rules that are banning what they, because I know we went through some legislation that prevented them from accepting certain grants or whatever, which would obviously help our counties.
I think being from Jackson County, I think we've had some conversations because some
Well,
of them.
let's be clear that almost all of our 114 counties took that grant. But I think you all called it Zuckerbucks or something like that, and I think there were only like 2 or 3 counties that did not take it. So that showed that was something that could help our elections be fair, safe, and equitable. So are we still doing those type of restrictions when our election offices can find additional resources to supplement and make sure that they can still be fair?
I'm not sure I totally understand the
Or are
question.
you stopping
Senator.
them from getting money elsewhere?
No, we can't stop them from getting money. Only they can follow current state law. We do have a line item where we can accept donations and grants and gifts, and so we've been in some preliminary discussions with Jackson County as far as not Zuckerbucks, but they have the opportunity maybe to get some other monies that they cannot receive directly. And so we've been in some preliminary discussions with them.
So if they're sent to your office, you will make sure that they get back to Jackson County since they are the entity that, and that's for any county.
If that's the intent of the grantee, yes, grantor.
Okay. Secondly, is you said that you're going around doing these public demonstrations, which I and the other senator, our counties already do that. So is this in addition to what the counties are already doing, and what's the cost
Yes,
for that?
so there's no cost, and actually the public demonstration
Are
was
you
here.
there? Are you there at every one?
We've only had one.
Okay.
and
Are
that
you
was
going
last
to be at
Tuesday.
every one?
Yes, most certainly.
And so
I will
isn't
try
there
to be
a
at
cost
every one.
that is involved in you getting to all the counties to do this?
No, I'm not going to each county to
Okay.
do it. They're doing them here at the Capitol. So last Tuesday, it was from 2 to 3 p.m. We invited all the elected officials. ES&S was the one that was trying to recertify a software update. And so we invited them in, and they said that they do this in other states. So this is very common in some other states. So we invited them in, invited the public, invited elected officials, invited the media. It was a very successful event. They had sample ballots that people could fill out. They could circle names and try and trick the machines and ask any questions that they are. So there's no cost per se
Okay.
to the state of Missouri, to taxpayers, or to the Secretary of State's office.
And then last question, you said that you all took, what, $150,000 off, 150,000 people off the rolls. How
Yes.
was that determined?
Well, going through, was it MCVR? Yes.
Because my daughter was one of those people that has been removed, and she's never not voted.
Yeah, we can get you a break.
Oh, no, I got her back. But I just want to know how we're making that determination.
Well, we work with the local election authority in order to look at those, whether it's someone that has not voted following Missouri state law, somebody that has not voted in, I believe, the last 2 federal elections. Look at duplicates. We can look at, I don't think we've done this yet, but Social Security numbers. We can look at change of address.
Could you get us like a summary or whatever of
Yes,
those
yeah, be
people who
glad to.
have been
Yeah.
removed? Because I think, we got to be careful about taking people's rights away to vote, especially if some are elderly and they may not come out to vote because they are elderly, and whatever restrictions there are for them. And then they decide they want to vote and they find out that they can't, and they have to go all the way through that process again. So if you could get us that information, that would be great.
Yeah, we'll get you that information as far as what we look for. Duplicates, we're working on some memorandum of understandings with other states to see if, they signed up, registered to vote, and they moved over to Kansas or they moved over to Illinois and they registered to vote there, but they're still in the voter rolls here in the state of Missouri. So those
Okay,
are some of the
thank
things
you.
we look at. Yep, you're welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So you were successful, I take it, with the voting machines and the demonstration and all that. Did you feel like that was successful?
Yes, I thought it was a good way to let the public, elected officials, and media have a chance to come in and kick the tires per se of those election machines, ask questions, voice their concerns if they had any concerns on those election machines. And so according to state statute, it lists out, we have a checklist of list out what we're supposed to check for. And so we're following that, and then we're in process of proposing a new rule that would go through that would require this public demonstration as part of that recertification process, which is, we found out, common in other states.
So are you more confident in the machines now that you're kind of on the inside instead of on the outside looking in, so to speak? Do you have more confidence in that, in the system the way it is now, or less confidence?
I would say my confidence is about the same. I would continue, it's no secret that I filed bills to hand count ballots here in the state of Missouri, and only the legislature or county clerks can actually mandate that. But with any electronic device, I guess I always have concerns about just how that is transmitted. I did find it great that they're not connected to the internet. They actually have.
I think we passed that law.
Yes, and they actually. I might know who passed that.
I think I do too.
Yes, they have memory sticks that, at least for ES and S, that can only fit into their election machines, and so that was very interesting as well. They had some of the things they were discussing just about election and security I had not thought about, so it was very informational.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
Yep. Hey, Senator.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Great.
So I'm hearing that you've acquired a lot of knowledge that you might not previously had before you took that position.
I learned something new every day, Senator, just
See what
like
I'm
I was
saying?
when I was in the Senate.
See, just like when I'm saying, I be telling people we got to research and understand things before we pass these laws. So I don't know if this is a question or a suggestion.
Okay.
So when we're talking about removing people from the rolls, and you
Yes.
say they haven't voted in 2 years, are we contacting them, saying that, hey, we noticed you haven't voted in 2 years. We want to make sure that you're still, considering, you know what I'm saying, a letter or something? Because I think that 5 years or 6 years would be an indication, but 2 years to me would be a, anything can happen in 2 years. Kids go off to college. They don't get to vote. They're at college. They haven't figured out how to do the absentee because they're in college, or, things like that.
Right.
So, and then, because there's a process when I'm going into the polls to vote, and I'm thinking they giving me a provisional ballot because I'm thinking I'm registered
Yes.
already, and I'm not. So if it's 2 years, I would think that's too soon. I would.
And sorry, Senator,
contact
I
them.
misspoke. It's not 2 years; it's 4 years. Two federal cycles would be 4 years. Yes, there we go.
Okay, 2 federal cycles. Okay. But I would consider sending a letter or contacting them in some way to let them know that we're about to remove you from the voter rolls. Can you, identify your, send something in or something like that?
And yes, we do send letters.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Senator Washington.
Yeah, when this issue came up before, you all told us that you all don't send the letters, that you allow the locals to send the letters. And I think what Senator May is saying, and what I agree with, is that you all should send those letters, especially since I know in my county it took some years to even get reimbursed for cost of election. And then when I talked to other small counties, one that used to be in your district, Saline, that's my second home.
Yes.
They weren't getting their money back, so they couldn't even afford to do that. But are you now sending those letters? Or are you still depending on the local election authorities? Okay, yeah, we.
Hey, let's not do like just yelling in from the gallery. So if you want to come up and grab a microphone, please. Yeah.
This is Nick Lestrade, our new Director of Election Integrity. He was the Pettis County Clerk up until mid-January.
All right, so you guys are asking very good questions. So the local election authorities, what they do is that once there is mailing pieces that have been mailed out, then once the local election
Speaking to the mic, please.
Oh, sorry. Once the local election authority does receive that piece of mail that has been back in their hand, they have to put them and called into an NVRA status.
So
they
what
send-
would be the challenge of you all sending that, since you are the ones removing them from the rolls?
So we can't not do that, but the local election authority will do that.
What is
So-
what is the obstacle that the Secretary of State's office cannot do that? Is there an obstacle?
No,
or you're just
that's
pushing
actually
that
under-
responsibility
That is actually
on?
under Missouri Revised Statute 115-193. So this is they are required by law to do this. So they have knowledge that, hey, Susie has obviously.
I don't want to be rude, but
moved,
I'm
but
one of those people that I like my question answered.
If you
So
would-
the question
Yes, ma'am.
is not that they're doing it, not that it's in statute. What is preventing your office from doing it? Is there some statute that says you can't do it?
We cannot. They are.
Does the
their-
statute specifically say that you
Yes.
cannot, or does the statute say that they're required to? Because that's two different things.
We cannot tell the local. We as the Secretary of State's office cannot go in there and tell them how to run their office. So
That's not what I'm asking you.
Okay.
You are who it is your office removing the voters.
No, it's their office.
No, it's not.
Yes,
Because
yes,
we
ma'am.
ain't never removed none, and we got some that were
Yes.
removed. My daughter got a letter from you.
From me.
Yeah.
Well, probably
Not you personally. Sir, you know I'm not talking about you personally. You just got the job
You
yesterday.
just said me. So I just
So
said
let's be for real, because you don't want to do that with me. For real.
I
You
didn't do
don't.
nothing.
You do
You're
not
the-
want to do that.
I-
Especially when
I'm just
we
saying.
control your paycheck. Okay, so let's be
I'm just
cordial
saying.
and respectful
It's okay.
and reasonable
I'm being
here.
Very respectful with you.
No,
ma'am.
you're not.
Yeah, that's fine. It's
Okay, you're not.
So you just said. No. Okay.
Okay,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
my question is,
Yes, ma'am.
is there something in the statute that prevents the Secretary of State's office from sending that notice before folks are removed? And if you don't know the answer, just say that, because you're not answering my question.
Senator, we'll look into that and get that information to you. Currently, the local election authority is the one that sends the letter. We'll look into it, and I'll come visit with you.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right. All right. Thank you, Senator.
I just want to finish one thing. No, you're good. You're good. You've got to fill out one of those.
Go ahead and continue.
All right. Page 54, absentee ballots. Absentee ballots are required by Section 115.285 to reimburse election authorities for the cost of using business reply permits on absentee envelopes returned by users. So we actually pay, the Secretary of State's office actually submits a prepaid envelope. Page 59. This appropriation funds the improvement of administration of elections and special election costs. Long-term goal is to update the voter registration system using these funds. Page 65.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Senator Washington. How are
Mr. Secretary,
Yes.
I know we have some, I have a rep in my district that continues to file something that wants more access for those who are blind or disabled, but we already have that, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I want to, when you come visit with me, I want you to follow and go over and tell her that.
All right.
Because
I will do that.
This is every year, and we already have that capability for those who are impaired of some way
Yes,
to vote, right?
it's very clear in state statute if they're disabled or they're impaired. Yes, we want all folks to be able to vote, and so yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Secretary, I've got a real quick question that
All
I've
right.
got to run out, and we're going to let the vice chair run the rest of the committee here for a few minutes. Are we moving towards hand counting ballots or not? Because it seems like for the last several months we've had a lot of discussions about whether or not we can trust these voting machines, right? And I think even you yourself have said probably on multiple occasions that we need to hand count ballots. So I actually thought when your budget came before the committee that we were going to see some sort of significant FTE request to help us hand count hundreds of thousands and or millions of ballots. Are we going to do that, or are we going to trust the voting machines now?
Well, only the legislature or the county clerks can mandate hand counting of ballots. So that would be up to you all. If the legislature decides that they want to move in that direction, then yes, we would have to go through and probably look at some different funding things for the hand counting of ballots, but as Secretary of State, I can't mandate that.
Would you be, I guess, would you be supportive of the local election county clerks?
Yes, yes.
Hand counting their ballots?
Yes,
and
I've
giving them
made
the
it-
like through your office, perhaps
I've made
providing
it
them the resources to help them
very
do that?
clear that, I mean, in current Missouri state statute, it lays out statutes for hand counting of ballots. I mean, it's very clear, and I've said that if there are any county clerks or local election authorities that would like to hand count ballots, that our office will be provide all the resources that,
Because
that
I
we
think
can.
even the new, I don't know, sort of new, but repeat federal administration, as recently as last week, has said that we need to move back towards paper ballots and having a hard
Paper
count
ballots
all
and
these-
same-day voting, and I've got some questions into the Trump administration if that meant hand counting of ballots or
just
not.
paper, right?
Yes, or just
Okay.
paper. Obviously, yeah, we are currently a paper ballot state, so we have to have paper ballots. Now, that means different things to different people. During the demonstration, and maybe when you all have gone and voted, sometimes you come up to a machine and you put in who you want to vote for, and then it prints out a paper ballot, and then you take that paper ballot and go to the tabulator and put it in the tabulator. So there's different kind of definitions of what exactly a paper
Yeah,
ballot
I just want
is.
to make sure that we're being consistent when we tell folks we're going to start hand counting ballots, and then we come into a situation where I guess we've got 114 different county clerks that actually oversee the elections. Your office really can't mandate that we're going to go around and hand count. all
Yes,
these
that is
ballots.
correct.
Right. Okay.
The Secretary of State office cannot mandate that we hand count
All right.
ballots. Only
Thank
the
you.
legislature
Yep.
or county clerks.
Thanks, Senator Serpoy.
Just as a comment or question, I know in my experience, I voted in Jackson County. Jackson County's got two election boards, Kansas City and Jackson County. And I would be, if I was an election judge, I would be a young election judge because they are mostly 70s and 80s, and the thought of those folks counting 20 bubbles on a card this size would just scare me to death as far as accuracy. That sounds like a horrible idea. So, thank you. No, because they're very senior. Thank you.
Senator May.
And on this same train,
Yes.
we will never, ever know the results of the election the same day if it's a big election and we're hand counting ballots.
Germany just hand counted ballots, and I think they had theirs done within 8 hours.
That's a long time. It polls close at 7.
Yeah, I'm
And
not.
I'm working, you know what I'm saying?
I don't know what time. I don't know how long their polls stay open, but I know other countries do hand count ballots, and Germany just had a recent election, I think within the past week, and I was reading where they had hand counted all their ballots within 8 hours. Now I don't
Yeah.
know all the particulars and how that compares, and if we're comparing apples to apples, but in my
No,
opinion,
that's probably apples to oranges. But that's why it's important that we have early voting. That way we can start counting early. And by election night, those people that vote on election night will be caught up. You know, this is 2025. I don't know why we want to go back to one-day voting. We need to be trying to figure out how to do secure voting by these phones. They gambling and doing everything else on them. We might as well vote on them. So, that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, Senator, I guess if you get that passed, then we will administer whatever election law that you do. All right, next page, page 65. This is required by the Missouri Constitution, Section 116.260, to publish the full text of the statewide ballot measures in newspapers. Page 70, document preservation. This allows the Secretary of State to accept and spend privately donated funds to archive and preserve historical documents. Page 75, local records grants. This is used to provide grants to local governments to provide secure storage and faster access to records. Page 80, federal grants. The $50,000 funding is used to support the expenses of the Missouri Historical Records Advisory Board to identify, preserve, and access all historical records in Missouri. Pages 86 and 91. This is the Library Networking Fund transfer. Statute dictates, again, 10% of money generated by the athletes and entertainers' income tax shall be transferred into the Library Networking Fund. We had previously asked for an NDI of $1.2 million in addition to this amount for a total of $4.4 million. Page 96, federal aid to public libraries. This appropriation allows the state to distribute federal funding from the Library Services and Technology Act. Funding is used for grants to improve technology and information services, provide training to provide public library staff, and to assist libraries to improve services to target populations such as senior citizens and youth. Page 102 is the remote electronic access for libraries. Through MoreNet, this provides internet access, training, and technical support to libraries. Page 107, state aid for public libraries. Required by Section 181.060, funds are distributed to public libraries on a per capita basis and to libraries in less affluent counties for equalization aid. And then the last on 108 is the Blue Book printing. This fund is dedicated for the expenses of the Blue Book. We sell these books at cost, and all revenues received from the sales of these books are deposited into this fund.
Any other questions from the committee? Yes, Senator Washington.
Is there any truth to the rumor that we're changing to the red book?
There is truth to that rumor, Senator. Yes. It's
Okay, is that going to increase our costs or anything?
No, it will not. It's going to be Patriot Red is what I think they picked out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Yes. Thank you, Senators.
Okay. We will move to the Department of Revenue next. I want to remind the committee that today we have a pretty hard stop at 10 o'clock, so there is a chance that we may have to come back in after session and finish. Okay, so remember that as we go through. I'm sure the department has been discussed, core changes, NDIs, correct? And I'd say we're ready.
Okay,
Begin.
thank you.
Director?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Trish Vincent. The last presentation was a little bit of deja vu for me, so since that's where I was before. I'm sorry. Sorry, Senator Washington. I normally am screaming, so I apologize for that. Anyway, Trish Vincent, Director of Revenue. Many of you know that this is not my first time as the Director of Revenue. I was the Director of Revenue 20 years ago under Secretary Blunt. So we're still doing the same things at the department, plates, driver's license, collecting taxes. Some things have changed as far as technology, but I believe that I've hit the ground running and in a really good place. We have excellent staff at the department, and we are doing your work and doing the work of the taxpayers. So we only have a few NDIs, which is, I was told, that's what we're going to kind of talk about today. And so Amanda Bolin has all the information about that, but we're certainly here to answer any questions that you might have for me or the department.
Okay, at this time, any senators got any question before we start?
Oh, excuse me, I should have added, we did pass out a handout for you. This is at a very high level, just talks about things of the department. It's kind of a quick glance. So in your leisure, if you could take a look at that, it would benefit you, I think. So gives you some data and some information. Sorry I didn't mention that before. Okay, Amanda.
Senator Washington.
Yeah, just real quickly, I know in previous years we've talked about your computer systems and the need to upgrade. Are we where we need to be with that?
Well,
Are you still using COBOL?
well, we are working, of course, the tax system was moved into a new system. Right now, we're in the process, and we already have rolled out a new driver's license system, and we are trying to get all those things off of those old legacy systems. Then we'll be working on the dealer portion where the automobile dealers will be collecting that tax at their dealership. So we're in the throes of that now, Senator.
Okay, thank you.
What's the timeline on that real quick, Director, for you?
Sure.
On the dealer part? timeline on getting that system running?
Well, right now, we are still working on the driver's license. When you do any technology, there's always things that come up that you have to fix.
No,
Excuse me?
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I can't believe that.
Yeah, so, anyway, we're in the throes of doing that and making sure, we want to make sure that's extremely stable before we start the dealer part. We're looking at possibly fall of '26 before that's put out for the dealers. Obviously, that's fairly complex. The dealers themselves have about 14 different front ends that they use that we're going to have to make sure that we can connect to that so that they can provide information back to our system. So we'll be working really closely with the dealers. We want to make sure that we answer their concerns, that we're getting the information we need, because obviously this is titles that we're going to be producing for them. So you may know that a law was passed that we were getting funding from the dealers to pay for this system. So I don't know if that answers all your question. If you want more detail, I'd be happy to come and visit with you.
Thank you. Please begin.
All right, thank you, Trish. Chairman and committee members, my name is Amanda Bolin. I'm the budget administrator for Department of Revenue. Let me start off by saying that we have no changes to our cores, so I will move right into the NDIs. So the first one we have is found on page 3, and that is the statewide pay plan. It's the same as all the other agencies. Moving on to our next decision item, which is the SAVE program rate increase found on page 19. The department is requesting funding for costs to continue to cover the rate increase from U.S. Department of Homeland Security to use the SAVE program, which is a sharing initiative designed to aid licensing bureaus in verifying driver license applicants' immigration status for lawful presence. The electronic verification is mandated by the REAL Act of 2005. The governor is requesting $46,600. Moving on to the next decision item found on page 22.
Excuse me just a second. Senator May.
So this 19, where we doing the system alien verification for entitlements program, is that a current system we have that can identify this?
Yes, we currently have that. This is just a cost to continue for the rate increases.
Okay. All right, very good.
Okay. Moving back to page 22 for our uninsured motorist program. The department is requesting funding to hire personnel and pay the vendor cost for program development of the Motor Vehicle Financial Responsibility Enforcement and Compliance Program that was established by Senate Bill 398. The governor is recommending $299,126 of highway funds. After reviewing responses to the RFP for this program, we are requesting an additional $250,000 on top of that for FY26. Okay, moving on to page 25 to the next decision item for licensed office dealers trainers. The department is requesting funding for new integrated system, the Mo Fusion, that will be providing opportunities for over 6,000 Missouri dealerships and 173 contract license offices. This is to develop a robust working relationship when helping Missourians. Non-GR. This is going to help Missourians complete their titling and registration documentation. The 14 FTE will be located throughout the state, traveling to the dealerships and license offices to provide on-site training and assistance. The governor is recommending 1.7, and this is in 14 FTE using the Motor V Admin Tech Fund. This is not GR.
Senator Serpoy.
Thank you. So presently, some places are doing the automated, you can do your license at the dealership and some are not. Is that, I guess it's, a year and a half before they're all online?
There isn't any dealer that's actually doing that service that interfaces with the Department of Revenue.
CarMax is.
Excuse me?
CarMax is. I just bought a car at CarMax and they took care of it. I paid all the taxes right there.
I'm going to have Zach. Zach, do you know anything about that?
I don't know if this is on.
Yep.
Okay, so I think the dealer you're talking about, what they do is, so they roll they put your sales tax in the loan, and they do the service for you. So they're kind of like a titling service agent.
I didn't borrow the money. I paid for it.
Okay, so they do it for, so they're like a titling service agent, so they're actually getting all the information for you, then taking it to a license office near them, or they're sending it straight to us at the department, and we send it back to them, and they mail it out to you in that realm, or we mail, it depends on how they fill out their
The
documentation.
future, that'll be different, the process will be different?
Yes, in the future.
Because they get 2% for that, right?
No.
They don't get 2% of the taxes?
They do not, because they don't get the timely filing discount until because the stipulation on the law that was passed for dealers to collect sales tax actually has in there a provision that says this is upon the completion of the whole system that we are
Why do
putting
they
into
do it?
place. Probably for a service for you guys, for their customers. It's a service that they offer for their customers. And if
They
they're
keep it quiet, because I didn't know that until I bought the car, so you'd think it's something that's of service they would advertise. I just assume there's got to be an incentive for them to do that.
Yeah, it's they probably, since they're in a way a tiling service agent, you probably paid a little fee
Okay.
to do that was embedded in your. I'd have to look at your documents to see, but you probably had a little fee in there.
Okay, but a year and a half, this all will be from every dealer in the state, or every used car slot?
Yes, in the fall of 26.
There's no, I mean, even if you sell 3 cars a month, you'll be on.
Well, you wouldn't be a dealer if you're 3 cars a month. Yes, sorry, I was thinking year, but yeah.
Okay, so I'm just saying there will be no temporary tags, because without dealers, there's no way to get temporary tags out. Is that true?
Well, so you can also get the plan that the department has, it's not going to be temporary tags. You will actually get a temporary kind of license. It's on the paper, but it's a
But
license. Your
you've
license
paid
plate.
for it, though.
Yes, you would
So
be already.
that's not a problem.
Yep.
All the out-of-date temporary tags I get emails about all the time now will no longer be, because private sales will be different, but they don't give temporary tags today.
Right. They can go to the license office and get a temp tag, but when they go to the
That
license
means they've
office
paid their
now,
taxes, though.
yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
Okay. We will move on to our next decision item, the third-party CDL, which is found on page 29. The department is requesting funding for the expansion of the third-party testing to include private education institutions and private entities to administer CDL skills testing, which is in Senate Bill 368 of the 2019 legislative session. The governor recommends $990,000 and $930 and 1 FTE of highway funds. Okay, now if you want to move back to page 80, we are requesting a postage rate increase. The governor is recommending $657,000 to cover the increased rate of cost of postage. Okay, next is on to refunds and distribution NDIs. If you move back to page 123, this is a general revenue refunds increase. This is for the estimates of the additional refunds that are part of the consensus revenue process determined by the Office of Administration and the House of Representatives and Senate staff. This is required by statute. The governor is recommending $113.7 million of GR. Okay. Next NDI we have is on page 190. This is the Parks Sales and Tax Fund transfer increase. This is a cost to continue. An estimated increase will support the future transfer to GR. We've requested a supplemental for FY25. This request updates the core budget. The governor's recommended $27,423 in other transfer funds. The next NDI is found on page 198. This is Soil and Water Sales Tax Fund transfer. This is a cost to continue as well. This is an estimated increase that will support future transfers to GR. This request updates the core budget. The governor recommends $27,423 in other transfer funds. And that is all the NDIs we have.
Any other questions, Senators, of the Department of Revenue? I don't need to look to the right anymore, do I? Yes. Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, State Tax Commission is the next folder in front of me. Okay. Well, Cinder, you moved from a place that you weren't liked to a place you're hated, so you can begin.
You nailed it, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Gary Romine, Chairman of the State Tax Commission. With me today, I have Commissioner Debbie McGinnis, Commissioner Razor, also our Office Administrator, Stacy Jacobs, and Dan Hutton, our Legislative Analyst in Policy. As you know, the State Tax Commission is a constitutional agency charged with the responsibility of the administration and oversight of statewide property assessment program, which generates $10.4 billion annually in local revenues. Those local revenues generate Fund 2,832 taxing districts in the state of Missouri, which includes public schools, approximately $7.82 billion to 518 public schools. Other local governments, other political subdivisions such as fire departments, ambulance service, road and bridge, and community libraries. We provided a handout for the additional information on what the Tax Commission works for. But at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Stacy to present the actual NDI of the budget. But I'd be happy to answer any questions before we get into that.
Thank you. Stacy?
Good morning, Senators. I'm Stacy Jacobs, the Budget Analyst for the State Tax Commission. Our budget starts on page 237 of the Department of Revenue Appropriation Book. This lists out our core, which is $2.9 million for 37 full-time employees. The State Tax Commission has 6 basic functions: to equalize assessments, hear taxpayer appeals on property assessments, formulate and implement statewide policy, and supervise local assessing officials in their assessment programs. We also conduct ratio studies to determine the level of assessment in each county, and we have the original assessment of distributable property. We have 4 sections that carry out our constitutional and statutory duties: the administration section, legal, local assistance, and original assessment. More information on these programs is located in the Department of Revenue program book starting on page 118. Page 243 is the Commission's respectful request of 10% flexibility. The Governor's NDI for the pay plan, our figures are included with Department of Revenue's figures on pages 3 through 11. The State Tax Commission's portion of that is $140,352. Page 244 is our program-specific distribution program with assessment maintenance core. This is required by Section 137-750, and it requires the state of Missouri that may provide local assessment jurisdictions up to 60% of all costs associated with implementing their 2-year reassessment plan. The statute further allows for a range of reimbursement for counties not to exceed $7 per parcel and not to fall below $3 per parcel. The median cost for this program is $20.40 per parcel, and this provides approximately 13% of the county's funding. The State Tax Commission only has 1 NDI request, and that starts on page 249 for assessment maintenance. We request this every year just to update our parcel count. This updates to the 2024 parcel count of 3.4 million parcels. And this concludes the State Tax Commission's piece of the budget, and I'm happy to answer any questions from the committee members.
I have a question. I have more than one assessor in my Senate district, some of you may know. There's discussion continually in my office and my telephone and through text about trying to increase this fee the assessors receive per parcel, and I know we just got done discussing it. Any problems with increasing that fee with the people that sit on that?
We would appreciate the support. We have requested in the last 2 years presentation to the administration on our budget, but was not able to garner that additional amount or funds. But the commission itself would be open to additional funds through the assessment. As we understand it, and we agree that the only source of funding to the assessors should be one source, which is the maintenance fund. And so if there's an opportunity, or this committee would consider additional amounts to go to that assessment fund, we would be open. We would accept it.
Okay. Not in the group in the background trying to stop it. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Do you have anything to add?
I just want to make sure we answered your exact question. Are you talking about the maintenance fund of dollars per parcel? Or are you talking about the commission that the collector collects that also goes to the assessment fund?
Don't make me look stupid up here on the microphone. I'm talking about, from the assessor's point, the value that they're receiving $3 a parcel now, right?
Yes.
And I would imagine the ones that I talked to really wouldn't care where that amount was increased because it hadn't been increased for years.
Well, we got a little support last year, but 330 is the number current rate. The biggest concern came in when J.D. Power bought out NADA Guide, which is a piece of legislation that's working through the system. We need to open it up to competitive bidding. And so right now they've gone from $60,000 a year for that book a few years ago to $700,000. I mean, it's just been it's getting close to $1 million on a per click basis. So there is a need that if we don't change the system on how the assessors get their guidebooks, then the assessors need the additional funds because that's a big chunk of change. That's getting close to $1 million as opposed to 67 that they're having to pay out of their budget. So yes, that would be very much a part of this committee to consider going forward. It'd be nice to get the bill passed to deal with the NADA guide, but we don't know when the bidding process starts how much that's actually going to cost, but it's going to be more than what they have been paying in past years.
Any other questions, comments? Senator Crawford.
I have two or three things. First of all, what did you say about $20.40? That's what it really costs them?
So the average cost for the state is $20.40 per parcel.
And we're giving our assessors $3.30.
$3.30.
That's a problem.
Yeah, and statute only allows it to go up to $7. That's the cap for the current statute.
I guess it doesn't matter if the $7 cap's there when we're not even anywhere close to that either.
Appreciative of the $7.
I think they would too. So I have a couple of specific things. First of all, we're getting a lot of pushback from 70-some counties. We've talked about this in caucus the other day. About several counties have gotten letters from you all with you threatening to withhold funds from them if they don't increase their assessed valuation. So I don't know, Mr. Chair, this may not be the place for that discussion, but I do want to have that discussion about that and what we can do about that because we have a bunch of unhappy, not only assessors, but senators over that. We're trying to cut taxes every time you turn around, and then makes it very difficult for us to tell them why a state agency is, on the other hand, increasing. So I know this probably isn't the time, but I want to mention that.
Can I give a quick response?
Quick response,
Absolutely.
but we will. Dan's name and telephone number right beside my
You've got that.
phone, and I haven't done it it's been there for 3 weeks, and we do need to have a meeting, and it probably just ought to be one.
And what I would encourage is to also consider the Hancock Amendment and what it was meant for. I mean, when we talk to the counties and encourage them to at least increase by 15%, if Hancock is handled the way it should in this process, then the taxes should not go up more than CPI, which is 2.9%, or 5%, whichever is less. So the tax burden to the property owner should not be more than CPI if the Hancock Amendment kicks in. The levy setting process is another part of the conversation that needs to take place. So really, you need to have the assessment, which is our responsibility to get folks to market value. Some counties are out of compliance by 30, 40%. And as a conservative, I hate projecting that upon the assessors to get that increase. But knowing what the Hancock can do if they raise that assessment properly, then the taxpayer won't be hit with a 30% tax increase. They'll be hit with 2.9 in real world.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then the other thing I would like somebody to answer for me is, I know my assessor has 2 different funds that she puts money into, and for some reason the tax commission wants that all in one checking account. And would somebody answer to me? I don't know what the funds are, but she's getting hit from somebody in your office saying they need to put those funds together, and it's easier for her to keep them apart. I don't know what the name of the funds are, but I'll find out. So if you'll circle back with me at some point.
We'll need to, because I'm not familiar with what you're talking about.
I'll find out. I don't know what the fund names are, but I'll find out.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Senator Searboy.
Thank you. But for Hancock, for this kind of thing, Hancock only comes into play for the whole taxing jurisdiction, right? If their numbers go up, I mean, if one area of that taxing jurisdiction goes up 20%, but the entire number does not go up 2.9 or 5, it doesn't come into play then, right?
That's, again, the issues that we're trying to look at on the understanding of how Hancock can be triggered is what we need to really get out there and educated and updated, because it could be a tremendous benefit, which is what it was meant for, to the taxpayers, so they don't get hit with a big increase.
So do you think they're just not applying it correctly, or they don't understand it, or what? I guess I'm kind of asking, what is the issue with the Hancock for them to understand that? Because I know exactly what you're talking about, because it just happened in our county.
I don't want to overgeneralize, but from my conversations, there's a lack of understanding of how the process should work in correlation between those levy setting, assessments, and Hancock. That's what we're finding right now, that we're in the heat of this battle.
Thank you.
Senator Brown.
Is there any way that, do you guys have a breakdown of what counties aren't in compliance or are not in compliance and what aren't?
Yes, we can furnish that to the
What is
committee.
the threshold? Does it have to be over 65%? Is that correct?
If it's outside of 90 to 110% of market value, then it's considered out of compliance. So
Okay.
we have a tiered system, 85% to 90%. They would just get a letter of concern letting them know, hey, you're out of compliance. If you would follow your maintenance plan, it should take you back into compliance. And then under 80% is the memo of understandings that Senator
So I'm
Crawford
assuming this
represented.
is more of a rural Missouri problem than it is an urban problem then.
No, it's pretty mixed.
Is
It's-
it?
Yeah.
We have about 80 counties that are out of
Yeah.
compliance.
I know it's one of my counties they're really, I mean, they I think they were at 65 or 52, and they got one of the letters to have to be up at 15%, and they've got some huge concerns.
And the 15% by statute, you cannot raise by more than 15% unless you give notification and done a proper inspections. And a lot of counties don't have the resources to do that. And the commission is sympathetic with that, and resources is an issue. And that's the reason why we're talking about up to 15%, because they can get that done without those physical inspections. And it may take them a couple of cycles to get into compliance. We're not forcing. And again, the maintenance plans explains that and works out in detail. What is our plan to get to compliance? And it may only be partially this cycle. The next cycle, maybe we can take the next step to get it on up. The more that the county can do, and especially if they can trigger Hancock, the better they are, because they're only going to trigger it once, and it'll only be 2.9% increase. But if they do a little here and a little there, and they trigger, then they're going to kick in Hancock twice, and so instead of 2.9%, it's going to be 5.8%. So that's the reason why we're trying to get up the maximum amount this cycle, so that they only impact the taxpayer one time, and it's only the 2.9% hit.
So
Senator May.
I want to maybe broaden this a little bit. So I know that, the county assessor, when you got counties, and the counties are different on different economic social levels. So say, for instance, I got a small poverty county, but the assessor is assessing the real estate tax in that county with the average tax of the overall wealth of all the counties. How does that, is that accurate? So if I have in this one county, basically the houses probably sell at about 50,000 and hasn't increased, but all of a sudden they get a huge increase in real estate tax.
There should be sections of a county as they block out. There should be a mean value on the properties, and it should be designated by a market area. One county should not make up the whole market. Counties are different, whether it's in a rural or an urban area. Different counties have different economic levels within those. So I hear what you're saying, but it should not, if the formula or the CAMA system, which is a computer assessment program, should take into account the market or the particular community in which they're doing the assessment process.
To piggyback off of that, they should have their county broke out into neighborhoods, and they're not neighborhoods in the way we would think of them, but like areas of their county. It could be a neighborhood over here matches a neighborhood way at the south of the county. But if they have them broke out into those neighborhoods, they would just be targeting the market in those specific areas. It should not be taking in everything around the state, just the market in those neighborhoods in their county.
Okay.
That should be part of the process, is consider the neighborhood or the economic area.
Okay, thank you. Very good. It means I have to have a meeting with the assessor.
Any further questions? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
and
guys.
just give us a call if there's anything else we can answer. Appreciate it.
Well, Director? Do I get to stay in the meeting, or do you going to march me out?
Oh, and another thing.
Well,
say
well,
something?
well, Senator May, one more thing.
Any information that you're going to get, we want you to get it to the budget staff, and they'll distribute it to the whole committee.
Sure. Thank you.
Director.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. My name's Lester Elder, the Executive Director for Missouri Lottery. And with me today is Melissa Blankenship. She's our accounting manager. And I know your time is short, so we'll be brief. And my one-year-old granddaughter blessed me with a cold a couple of weeks ago that turned into sinus infection, so I'll try not to cough while I'm talking here. Just a couple quick things about Missouri Lottery. We've been in Missouri since 1986. 100% of our proceeds go to education. Our operating cost is 3.6% of total sales, which is one of the lowest in the nation. Some highlights in FY24. Last year, our total sales were $1.7 billion. Our transfer was $390 million, which was our third highest transfer in lottery history. To date, $8.4 billion has gone to the state and public education from Missouri Lottery. FY25, our sales are down for the first 7 months. Our estimation is going to be about a $362 million transfer to education this year, which would be our fourth highest transfer, but it's well below the $430 million transfer that we were given with the FY25 budget. A lot of that we talked about in our meetings one-on-one with the Powerball jackpots, and some unregulated gaming machines have affected us, but we will hope for some jackpots and try to get our sales up for the last 5 months of the year. But I will let Melissa go over the NDIs, and if you have any questions, I'm here to answer any questions for you.
Thank you. Please begin.
Thank you, Vice Chairman and committee members. We have two NDIs to discuss with you. The first one is on page 251. This is the pay plan recommendation from the governor. The Missouri Lottery makes up $595,000 of the amount for the Department of Revenue that begins on page 3. The second NDI we have is also a governor recommendation on page 271. This is to cover the cost of our vendor payments of $3 million. This also results in a corresponding increase on page 273 to our transfer to the lottery proceeds fund for the same amount. Those are the only two NDIs we have.
We're here to answer any questions if you have any, and appreciate your time.
Any questions, folks? Thank you very much, Director.
Thank you, Chairman.
Those one-on-one meetings took care of everything, didn't they?
I appreciate
Very
your time.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think whispered in my ear here pretty quick is we will probably be back to do Department of Health after we get done with state judiciary. Okay. Everybody can wait. They waited to come in, and it's been recommended that we start. So if you need to go to the bathroom stuff, you better get out of here and come back. But we're going to start Department of Health now. I may be here by myself, but yeah.
I want Amy and Tanya. Hey, Amy.
Yeah, we're not. Okay, Director, I think you're well aware that we will be stopping when the bell rings first or second time, correct?
Yes.
And we're going to work on NDIs, and I know you've been going around to offices, et cetera, so it's a good time for me to shut up. Let's use time as quickly as we can.
Okay. Are we ready?
Begin.
Good morning, committee. Good morning, committee. Can you hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. I'm Sarah Wilson, Acting Director of the Department of Health and Senior Services. It's an honor to be with you today for my first Senate Budget Committee hearing. I know that we are in a fast timeline here today, and so we're going to get started with Amy Rinkemeyer with our administrative office.
Good morning. I'm Amy Blankenship, the Interim Director of Administration, and I just wanted to go over our statewide NDIs. On page 8, this is a new statewide decision item for the federal medical assistance percentage, otherwise known as FMAP, change with the governor recommended amount of $14,092,522. Beginning on October 1st, 2025, the blended FMAP rate and the enhanced FMAP rate for the Children's Health Insurance Program and Women with Breast or Cervical Cancer Program will decrease, and this change will result in a net cost shift from federal to general revenue for our department. To realign the federal match, the governor recommended this NDI for additional general revenue authority as well as a corresponding core reduction in federal authority. On page 11, this is a governor recommended statewide new decision item for a time of service pay plan for full-time state employees. The governor recommended $4,610,976. This would provide a 1% salary increase for every 2 years of continuous state service and would cap out at 10% for 20 years of service. On page 21, this is a statewide new decision item for the general revenue pickup for the previously mentioned time of service pay plan for full-time state employees. The governor recommended $1,917,574 in general revenue. Did you also want us to go over core changes?
No, we'll see if we can get by without those.
Okay. I will pass us over to Alicia Jenkins with the Division of Community and Public Health.
Good morning, committee chair and committee members. I'll be presenting the budget for the Division of Community and Public Health this morning, and with me I have Maddie Stearns, who is our operations director within the division. Moving to page 85. This is our NDI for the PHHS grant cost to continue. The governor has a recommendation of $649,081. Moving on to the next NDI, page 95. This is our CHIP program cost to continuation. The governor's recommendation is $2,687,866. Moving on to page 105. I have your papers here. This is the SRAE grant increase, and the governor's recommendation is $70,000. Moving on to page 117, we have the adult use SUD grants. The governor's recommendation is $20,794,885. Moving on to page 176, this is the FEP Grant Authority. The governor's recommendation is $99,145. Moving on to page 179, this is the ventilator maintenance. The governor's recommendation is $469,070.
Senator Nuremberg.
I know this is a weird thing to jump in and look at, but we also had this in the supplemental. Can you just give me some information about how many ventilators we're maintaining in the state, where they are, et cetera?
Yes, there are currently 500 ventilators being maintained, and they're located in 2 different locations within the state.
Okay. And yeah, just follow up online. I'm just kind of, it's interesting that we're spending so much on maintenance every year, and I get when you have a something like COVID hit that we want to have ventilators that are ready to be used, but interested where these are being stored and if there's a way to better do this, I guess, is how.
I would say the department is certainly welcome working with the committee to realign and do any adjustments as see fit.
Yeah, again, just interesting,
Yes.
right? We had 500,000 in the supplemental to get through the end of the year on ventilator maintenance, and then here we have it again. So just curious about that one. Thank you.
You're welcome. Moving on to page 192. This is for the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Acts called Circular Expansion. The governor's recommendation is $711,896. Moving on to page 195. This is for an environmental health grant capacity. The recommendation from the governor's office is $100,000. Moving on to page 198. This is an NDI that I would like to point out, but there is no governor's recommendation. Moving on to page 217. This is our DMI staffing increase. The governor's recommendation is $76,343. Moving on to page 243. This is the NDI for our nutrition specialist staffing. The governor's recommendation is $238,505. Moving on to page 254, this is the nurse loans funds transfer. The governor's recommendation is $100,000. Moving on to page 281. This is extended women's health cost to continue. The governor's recommendation is $545,028. Moving on to page 284. This is for the Justice for Survivors Fund Authority. The governor's recommendation is $100,000. Okay. Moving on to page 307. This is for ARPA Grant Authority. And the governor's recommendation is $823,518. If there are no questions from the committee, I will turn it over to Adam Perkins from our State Health and Public Laboratory. You're welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Adam Perkins, and I'm the director at the State Public Health Laboratory. I only have one new decision item to present this morning. It's on page 319, and it is appropriation authority increase for other funds relating to Missouri Public Health Service. These funds are used to support our newborn screening program at the State Public Health Laboratory, and also this will support the on-site wastewater program with our Division of Community and Public Health. This increase is needed for the SPHL to continue to fully utilize the fee that is charged to provide the current level of newborn screening testing. It will specifically address rising costs seen within our laboratory supplies, statewide courier systems, laboratory information management systems, and these have all risen by an average cost of 8% annually. It will also support our on-site wastewater program that issues permits to residential wastewater systems and provides for the training and licensing of the professionals who install those on-site wastewater systems. The growth in this program has continued to the point where it's created a backlog in the processing of these permits, as well as a waiting list of several months to participate in the training for those professionals who provide the installations. This increase will go towards an additional FTE and supplies needed to reduce that backlog, improve turnaround time, and better customer service. The governor's recommendations here is $643,000 and $643,712 in one FTE. Any questions?
Let's see.
Thank you very much. I will pass the baton over to Melanie Highland in our Division of Senior and Disability Services.
Good morning. Melanie Highland, I'm the director of our Division of Senior and Disability Services. Our first NDI is on page 350. This is our Medicaid Home and Community-Based Services, HCBS, cost to continue. There is a corresponding supplemental here, and we are, the governor's recommendation is $97.7 million federal funds. It is different from the department request only because we have better numbers. So this continues operations to continue to serve our seniors and individuals with disabilities. On page 364 is our next NDI. This is a little odd here, but essentially there was the Senior Services Growth and Development transfer from GR to this fund for AAAs and senior centers was coded as a one-time appropriation last year. So a few pages earlier, we had to core reduce that out, and we asked for it back in an equal amount in the department request. OA is projecting an increase in dollars to that fund that would be transferred, which is why the governor's recommendation is 10.6 million GR to transfer into that fund.
Senator Burke.
I have a question on this one, and it might not be in the right spot. So a little bit concerned about, or I shouldn't say a little bit, I've been very concerned about the lack of funding for our seniors, and especially as Missouri has a rapidly aging population and recognizing that, quite frankly, folks are living longer, and we're just trying to do everything we can to continue to serve people, especially if they want to stay in their home, adapt their home to be able to age in place, et cetera. One of the things that I've heard is there's a lot of concern about what we've done in recent years, not fully funding the ombudsman, even concerns that Meals on Wheels won't be able to be fully funded or properly implemented. Where does Meals on Wheels fall?
So Meals on Wheels, I think you're referring to home delivered meals. That is in our AAA core area agencies on aging, in which we have 10 across the state. We do, there is a combination of general revenue, federal Older Americans Act dollars. They also received some COVID level funding as well, specific to the AAAs, as well as the Senior Services Growth and Development funding that goes to them. The home delivered meals, though, is there's two different brands of that. There's a Medicaid home delivered meal, and then there is non-Medicaid for those that don't meet that income, asset, or eligibility.
Okay. And I think, I'm looking at, so I kind of jumped ahead on that one. It looks like we're going to be there on 367, or that's where that one falls.
This one, and then page 374.
Okay. So is there going to be enough money to continue those programs?
We are asking for this next one. Let me just one second.
Go ahead and jump to 373, and we'll finish this
sorry,
question
373.
and try to be done here in a minute.
Yes. This is our Older Americans Act authority. But this is not additional cash that would go to the area agencies on aging. This is essentially just that federal authority in which we believe they will need based on some kind of carryover funds and a different level of spending. But this is essentially more checks in the checkbook. It's not more cash in the bank account. This is to allow them to spend dollars that have already been awarded to them. It is $4 million of federal funding. As far as to answer your question on is this enough? This is all the funding that has been appropriated to the state for both, or that has been granted to the state from federal funds through the appropriated transfer to the Senior Services Growth and Development Fund. That's hard to say fast, as well as the general revenue for the AAAs.
Okay, if you all can just follow up with me offline and just share some information in terms of how many people are using that program, some of those, so we can just look at some of the metrics there. I'm curious about that one. And then what about the ombudsman? Where does that fall?
That also funds within this AAA core that AAAs do. The funding flows through them.
Okay.
So that would be, if you wanted to look at that, we can talk about that. We can also talk about that, offline if you want to. They're kind of embedded into that AAA
Okay,
core.
so essentially how many do we have across the state?
We have, we employ the statewide ombudsman or house within our division. They administer about 18 different regional ombudsman coordinators and oversee a network of about 69 volunteers.
Whew, it's a lot of work. Okay, thank you.
405, right?
I'm supposed to next introduce Mr. Steve Bolin with the Division of Regulation and Licensure for the next NDI.
Yeah, we're going to try that.
Good morning, members of the
Morning.
committee. Mr. Chair, I have 4 NDI items to discuss with you today. The first is on page 401. This is a reduction of the CNA training program totaling $500,000. The governor recommended that we make a partial reduction with the remaining $1 million intended to fund scholarships for students and instructors enrolled in the CNA programs. Page 405, you will see a new decision item for the prescribed pediatric care program is $115,000 to fund an FTE to perform licensure and regulation for new facilities that provide care for medically fragile children. Page 409, you will see a new decision item requesting for funding to contract with RNs to do applications for care for residents of long-term care facilities under Medicaid. It's a volume request based on an increased number of requests we received over the past couple of years. On page 412, you'll see a new decision item for the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. This is not a new funding request. This is a request to carry over funding from last year to this year. We're still working on the RFP to create a new database for the prescription management program for the department. And the last one is on page, 415. This is also a request to carry over funds for the next year for the Supplemental Healthcare Staffing Agency. This is to create a new database that meets their needs to track the agencies that provide temporary staffing for hospitals and healthcare and long-term care facilities. But it's not a new request for funding. It's just a carryover.
Any questions, Senator? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Amy Moore for the Division of Cannabis Regulation. Thank you.
Good morning. Amy Moore, Division of Cannabis Regulation. I am the director of the program, and I just have one NDI that will wrap up our department presentation. So for me, if you look on page 447, this is what is termed an adult use revenue transfer. The governor recommends $23,362,728 to transfer funds from the adult use side of our regulatory program to the beneficiaries that are laid out in Article 14. Those are the Missouri Veterans Commission, the Public Defender's Office, and the Substance Use Disorder Grants that we heard about a moment ago from our Division of Community and Public Health. And this will be an amount in addition to a core amount, and there's a supplemental request as well. Altogether, the total, adding those three together, is we'd be looking at a possible new authority from the adult use program of $85,704,537. If there are no questions, I think that's it for the department.
Senator Brown.
And this is tax revenue off of sales, correct?
It is a combination of the tax revenue from retail sales on the adult use side, as well as fees that come into the program from the licensees.
Okay, so from like the growers and dispensaries, fees from them that goes into the department.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right.
Any other senators have any questions of the department? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, that was good. Remember, we have another meeting tomorrow. We're adjourned. They heard it on that side.
That's what I do. That's what you pay me for.